All right, so Rick, great to have you back on the show. We have so much to talk about. I mean, so let's just jump right in. As always,
my brother.
We sure do. The House voted to impeach Mayorkas. It failed. Fucking failed. In what can only be called a stunning defeat for Republican leaders. Is this the end of it? And what happens to the 3 defecting Republicans who voted against it?
Well, the 3 that voted against it are going to get punished, that's what happens in Trump and MAGA world now. If you dare to be an independent voice in anything, you're going to get punished. But look, they're going to try to touch the hot stove again when they have one of their other members back next week. They're going to try to do this again. But here's the thing: this was really a trial run for their impeachment of Joe Biden. And what we learned this week is that these guys can't organize a 3-car motorcade. They are not smart guys. And Mike Johnson, as Speaker of the House, is making Kevin McCarthy look like Albert frickin' Einstein. He is not good at this work, man. He is a terrible vote counter. Say what you will about Nancy Pelosi. That woman knew exactly to the vote who she had on deck for any given bill. This guy was out there last night with his dick in his hand, like wondering if he was going to make it. And he obviously did not understand his own caucus, did not have a hard vote count. If you knew it was going to lose, you would never bring it to the floor.
Absolutely.
But he's an idiot. So here we are.
Yeah. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene made some sort of off-the-wall comment about, I forget who the representative was, that he came back, he was out, I think sick or something like that.
Right.
And he's a Democrat. Right. And he's a Democrat. And he came back to the floor to cast his vote, which is what he's supposed to do as a member of Congress. And she's making some wackadoodle off-the-wall comment about how the Democrats planned for this to happen once they saw that they needed his vote in order to ensure that the impeachment didn't go through. I'm so confused by the level of her stupidity.
Michael, let me give Marge the bad news. That's how a fucking leader works. Hakeem Jeffrey said, "Hey, brother, I know you're sick. I know you're not feeling it. I need you." And you know what? Green said, "I'm your guy." And he showed up. He posted up and did the work. I know a lot of Republicans have a difficulty these days understanding that. It's like showing up, being committed, actually getting things done. But Green was a guy who was he was called, he answered. That's how the world's supposed to work. People are supposed to to take their job seriously and show up for it. He did.
And they still lost. I mean, that's the beautiful part of the whole thing. I mean, but again, she gets up and I can't believe that people even call her like the darling of, I mean, imagine this, she's the darling of the Republican Party, this fucking moron and a half. She gets up and she makes this statement that he should not have come back to vote because the Democrats needed this vote in order to ensure that an impeachment proceeding against the Department of Homeland Security, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, should not be impeached, despite the fact that there's really no basis for the impeachment at all. And this is what she's campaigning on.
Yeah, look, let's be real here. Marjorie Taylor Greene, when Republicans send Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're not sending their best. This is not a bright person. She is not she's semi-crafty in that world of MAGA bullshitting and throwing your hands in the air and screaming and acting out. But she's not really a smart person, and it shows very clearly when she is out saying these ridiculous kind of things. But she's also now very much like the median member of the Republican caucus in the House, Michael. She's not dumber than some other people. There are dumber people in the House. I know that sounds like it takes a lot of work, but she's definitely she's definitely a person who represents where an awful lot of the MAGA voters certainly are.
Well, I'm not so sure that she represents as many as you think, considering she's moving to a completely different district, because where she's currently sitting,
that's
is
Boebert.
that Lauren Boebert, right?
Yeah, that's Boebert.
That's
yeah,
Boebert.
This is
right. Well, this is another one that deserves to go.
100%. 100%. I mean, both of them are really, really bad examples of leadership in any way whatsoever. And you know, in Boebert's case, her whole her moving, her public displays of well, I won't say affection. I mean, her publicly dick groping some guy. You know, all these things. None of these people
at a Beetlejuice Broadway show.
Beetlejuice.
I mean, look, you know, it's one thing. It's one thing if you're talking about something that maybe has some sexual connotation to it. You got yourself all hot and steamy and shit. But to Beetlejuice, I mean,
right? I mean, what the hell?
I mean, it's like, you know, it's like groping the guy, you know, to Aladdin. I mean, this is just something.
Look, but again, these people, all these people in the MAGA verse, all these people in that world, they absolutely have misread where the rest of America outside of their red districts lives. They've misread it. They don't understand that a lot of the stuff that they're doing for all these show trial bullshit, all this chaos that they're causing, none of it works for regular Americans. Nobody's here for that shit. Nobody. And you know, this week when they hear, and people are hearing like this really contradictory moment. It's either the border is the worst crisis in America, we've got to immediately take action right this minute, right this second, or fuck it. Trump doesn't like it, so we won't do it. I mean, which is it, people?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. But when is the Biden committee, when is the folks that are out there supposed to be protecting Biden, why don't they put out some legitimate facts? You know, I was just with a friend of mine. She's from Dallas. She used to live in New York, moved out to Dallas, and she's back for some personal reasons. And we just had some coffee and we were talking about it. And she was talking to me about this whole border issue. And I said, okay. I said, I'm not going to argue with you about the issues that are going on with the migrants and the border and so on. But you do know that immigration has been a problem in this country for at least 6 decades. And every president before Biden, Trump included, kicked the fucking tuna can down the street. All right. Hoping
100%.
that somebody else would be able to figure it out, because it is very difficult. There's X number of people. There's X number of people each and every day that are trying to come into America. I grant that. But that number is not that much greater than the number of people that were trying to enter the United States under the Trump administration or the Obama administration or the Bush administration and so on.
When you get down to it, Michael, the last president that passed an actual immigration bill was Ronald Reagan. That one that actually did something, right? And so this idea that there's some magical fix here that doesn't involve, you know, one party, each party giving up a little something they want, is crazy town. And the fact that we're even arguing whether or not, you know, after Republicans have screamed up and down for years, we've got to close the border. It's urgent. And now it's like, no, we're good. We can wait another year. And we can wait as long as we need to, because Trump doesn't want us to do it. I mean, that shit to me, that's what really offends me, is this idea that somehow, you know, the urgent problem can just be put off as long as it's got a political upside for Republicans.
Yeah, you know, I want to ask you that on the same note, because this border deal looks like it's dead on arrival, right? I mean, MAGA Mike Johnson has said so over and over and over again. The guy really fucked up. If they do indeed tank the deal, which was actually drafted bipartisan, but it was drafted by a Republican, how do you think that it will ultimately end up affecting them politically? Or don't Republicans care about the truth or of anything anymore? I truly just don't get it.
Well, look, if you're looking for people who are deeply committed to the truth these days, it's not going to be in the Republican Party. They are okay with the chaos because they're not really interested or capable of governing. And, you know, it's one thing to say we disagree on a policy. It's another thing to say we can't and won't do anything about anything. And that's where the Republicans really are right now. And I think it's not quite there yet. It's a growing sense, though, that the Republicans they give a shit about one thing, and that's Donald Trump. Other than that, they really don't have a lot of give a fuck out there for anything that I can see. It really is shocking how little they actually care about achieving anything beyond, is Trump happy? Okay, we're happy.
Perhaps if we're supposed to give a shit what citizen Trump really cares about. He doesn't care about the border.
Of course not.
He doesn't care about anything or anyone other than himself and enriching himself. I don't know why they don't see it. I don't know why it's even a topic. All you have to do is just look at what he's doing. Look at what he's saying. Imagine this. Imagine you're screaming about the border. Oh my God, X number of people are coming in each and every day. Do you know, I saw an article, and I want to get your take on it, where a whole bunch of MAGAs heard that there was going to be this massive caravan of migrants that were going to be coming to, I think it was the Texas border.
Texas,
and they all,
Eagle Pass.
And they all go on, the bunch of MAGAs with their AR-15s and their stupid-ass lobotomy or red hats and so on, with the flag, with the 2024 Trump, flag waving and shit. And they all set up camp over there at Eagle Pass. And what ends up happening? There's no caravan.
Not dick.
Right. And so at some point in time, even stupid people have to learn that they're being duped, that there is not this ongoing, continuous caravan of migrants that are pouring into America with fentanyl and all other sorts of drugs in order to destroy, America's population. How many more times do they want to go to a border and see that they are being misled by propaganda, by MAGA Republican propaganda? Sure. What else do we need to do to get through to these people with fucking 3 teeth and 4 brain cells?
Look, Michael, this is a group of people who are proud that they don't think about things. They are proud that they listen to Mr. Trump, and that's all they care about. And while that makes them feel, I don't know, whole or whatever it is, it's increasingly obvious that, Trump has lost a big step. They are fighting in a much more uphill battle than they've ever fought before, because he's in legal peril. He's in political peril. All of that is making them look even more like ludicrously out of control. And look, I am not a guy who has a lot of mercy for anything about Donald Trump, as you are well aware. But these people, I feel actually sorry for some of them, because they are so locked in on Trump. They are so mind controlled by this guy that I don't see how they ever escape it. I mean, the guy could drop dead tomorrow, and a lot of them would be like, nope, he's still president. He's fine.
Yeah.
Nope, didn't happen. He's alive. He's like fucking Elvis living out somewhere in Branson, Missouri, hiding out. It's so crazy that it now borders for most of them, I think, frankly, on almost like tragic.
Did you see also the other day he reposted some MAGA supporter turned around and said that Donald looks like Elvis Presley, and they
I
morphed
saw
half
it.
of his face. And so
I'm like,
I said, I took it, I reposted it, and I said, we're talking about Smelvis von Schitzenpants, right? That I said, yeah, he looks like, right, and I'm blown away that they put him. He looks like Elvis Presley. He has the body of Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was Mr. Olympia. He's
right.
an astronaut. He's a cowboy. He's I mean, what the fuck is wrong with these people? I mean, it's almost like borderline insanity.
I think it's way over the line into insanity at this point. I mean, the idea that any sane, rational human being wakes up and goes, yeah, Donald Trump is the most fit, handsome man I've ever met. It's hilarious. It's like saying I have a full head of glorious wavy hair. It's not. It's just not. There's no reality there. But look, that whole cult, that whole thing, they have to always play the game. They have to always stay and pretend the emperor has clothes on. They have to pretend that he's smart. They have to pretend that he's successful. All these things just pile up and up and up, and they can't escape it. And again, I don't have a lot of mercy for these people, but there's a point where it's like the cult-like devotion is almost tragic.
Yeah, I mean, and they morphed the face in when it's like Elvis was in his 20s, right? Or
right.
referring to
right.
Elvis when, unfortunately, he was completely strung out and extremely heavy. I mean, at what point in time are they referring to? I don't know, but I can tell you one thing. Look, I've sat across from Donald Trump for a decade and a half, and I can tell you he does not look like Elvis Presley. He just doesn't. I'm sorry.
Of course not.
And I'm sure MAGAs will try to argue with me that he does. Okay, look, everybody has the right to their opinion, but you don't have a right to your own facts.
Correct.
He looks as much like Elvis Presley as I look like James Dean.
Right.
He looks more like Marilyn Monroe with the fake blonde hair, and he looks like Elvis, like Smelvis von Schitzenpants. So let me move on, since we're talking about fucked up people here, right? Catch your breath there, Rick. I'm not that funny, right?
You're killing me.
Let me ask you this question.
You're killing me.
Can you tell me, what is Tucker Carlson doing in Moscow? I mean, are Republicans seriously trying to find a way to sell the public on the merits of Vladimir Putin so that they can fuck over Ukraine? What's going on here?
Yes. That's exactly what's happening right now. That is 100% what's going on, and nothing about this Tucker trip is an accident. They are reminding everybody, the Russians are reminding us, and Tucker's reminding us that Donald Trump, whether he planned it or not, whether it was deliberate or not, that the Russians contributed to his victory in 2016. And that Trump has continued to obsess about his quote unquote friend Vladimir Putin, and they're reminding us of that. They're poking us right in the face and saying, "Ha ha, we still own this bitch."
Marvelous. But I was thinking, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm really not. I do really try to live by facts, not innuendo.
Sure.
But I was thinking to myself, I wouldn't put it past, as we know that there's a relationship between Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump, that this was planned, where Tucker Carlson is taking a message over to whoever the hell it is that he's meeting, because I can't imagine why he's over there. First of all, I think it's against our national security interest, and I think that Tucker should be upon arrival back to America, he should probably be taken into custody. I mean, he is a national security threat. But I started thinking to myself, maybe he's going there to pass along a message that the Russians should do like what they did previously and start flooding the entire, internet sphere whether it's X, formerly Twitter, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, with their, smear campaigns of Joe Biden, all in favor of Donald Trump, very much like what they did the first time around.
That would not shock me in the slightest. Insofar as, what was the return on investment that they got? So they spent a couple $1 million, here and there on help supporting Donald. Okay. What was their investment? How was the return on that investment? The return on that investment was that they got a guy who, for his entire term in office, could not have been. If Putin unzipped his pants, Donald Trump was like, "Bring me my golden knee pads." They wanted. He was with this guy. He was up this guy's ass 24/7. And so I have a look. I'm not a conspiracy theory guy either, but this did not happen in a vacuum. And maybe they're just looking at this as like, we can throw a couple $1 million again into the pool, and we'll get the same guy kissing our ass a second time around. That's sort of my theory of the case.
In Helsinki, it was just him, Putin, and Putin's secretary assistant, right, who were together, which is completely unprecedented, and it's antithetical to how a president is supposed to interact with an adversary to the country.
Yep.
Do we also
100%.
not forget that he turned around and he claimed that he believes Putin over our law enforcement agencies? Why is it that the American people, Republican, Democrat, Independent, they forget the facts on what really happened? Don't take Michael Cohen's word for it. Don't take Rick Wilson's word for it. Listen to what Donald said. It was there in front of the world to see, recorded as they closed the door with these three people on the other side. Aren't you concerned? Aren't you worried about what Smelvis von Schitzenpants is talking to Vladimir Putin, a KGB leader who understands that Donald Trump is a narcissistic sociopath? You turn around, you compliment how good he looks, and the guy's ready to sit there and give you whatever you want.
Look, I mean, here's one of the things that intelligence officers out there in the world know about. There are 4 things that make somebody compromised in intelligence: money, ideology, compromise, and ego. Donald Trump is every fucking one of those things for Putin. Every one of those things. He needs the money. He believes in the same authoritarian shit Putin believes in. He's compromised up the ass, and his ego, like you said, give him one compliment and the guy's going to kiss your ass for months. And so, this whole thing is, to my mind, really explicable. And Tucker being over there, and Tucker will later say, no journalist ever tried to interview Putin. Not true. I just want to give America perspective on what's really happening over there. Not true. And all of it adds up to this really, I think, kind of dark answer about where we are as a country, when you've got somebody who's one of the most powerful voices on the right, who has become a cheerleader for a country that is invading other nations, targeting civilians, and there's no excuse for it. But Putin knows if he keeps Tucker on his side, and he keeps Elon on his side, and he keeps Donald on his side, and he's got a pretty good chance of surviving. And if Donald's president again, Putin knows that tanks are going to roll through the fucking streets of Kiev, and he's going to be riding on one of them.
Oh, there's no doubt about
as
that.
A victor.
Yeah. I had Malcolm Nance, on this show several times. And one of the things as he's described Donald as is what's termed in that world of espionage and, and secrecy.
Oh, sure.
Donald is known as a useful idiot, which is a term that, and it's a real term. It's a term that describes somebody who doesn't even realize that they're being played and has the ability to do a tremendous amount of damage. And of course, the president, who has access to everything, for him to be sitting again in Helsinki or anywhere in the world with Vladimir Putin alone, with nobody there to turn around and to say, Donald, as he's waving papers like he did at Mar-a-Lago, right, with those top secret documents, you cannot do this. Let's also not forget that Donald Trump had one of the Putin, he
had Lavrov, he had Lavrov, the foreign minister, and he had the Russian ambassador in the Oval Office where there were classified documents laying around on his desk. And who the fuck knows what he did with them? I mean, you and I have a pretty good idea.
My understanding, Rick, is that he showed him documents that were given to Trump, to America, regarding Israel.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, that's not me saying it. Google it. It's all there.
Yeah.
Here on the show, like in yours, we talk facts. This isn't about a hatred towards Donald Trump. It's about fear that this man can end up destroying democracy, turning America into an autocracy, which is what he wants. He wants to be the Vladimir Putin of America.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'll do everything that I can in my power for sure, as I know you will, to ensure that shit just doesn't happen.
It's too much.
Yeah. So moving on, Matt Gaetz and Elise Stefanik, right?
Yes.
Have introduced a bill in the House that says Trump is not an insurrectionist. I mean, look, in 1987, 1988, I worked in the House. I worked for Congressman Joe Moakley. And I got a chance. Yeah, everybody remembers Joe. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. And I remember reading all of these, these bills that were being introduced and so on, and having to research some of them. Never in my entire life did I ever think I would ever see the day where two members of Congress, I don't care what side of the aisle that you're on, are attempting to introduce a bill in the House that says that the former president was not an insurrectionist. I don't even know where that comes from. And it's looking like J.D. Vance is going to do the same thing, or is doing the same thing in the Senate. Yeah. So for me, it's hard to believe.
Mitch McConnell may have lost a lot of his juice, Michael, but I can promise you that shit in the Senate is going to die. It's already dead. They just don't know it yet. I'm not even sure it can pass the House at this point. I think you would probably have enough pressure there where these people are like, wait a minute. And the irony of it, of course, Michael, is they all said, oh, well, you can't have an impeachment in the House. If you did something criminal, you have to do it out in the courts. Now that they're in the courts, they're like, oh, you have to put it back in the House. This is not going to work. It's like an ex post facto thing, like, oh, I killed somebody, but they've changed the law to make murder legal. That's not how it's going to work. And what this is Matt and Elise, both of whom are vamping to be like VP or best friend or whatever the fuck they want.
Secretary of State or Attorney General.
Yeah. Sure. Any number of fantasies that they have about this. And honestly, these are not people who have thought this through. They don't have a real crisp view of the Senate realities, because the Senate is going to kill it. They don't have a crisp view of the fundamental, like Americans are looking at this like, what the fuck, people, stop it. Yeah. That's enough. We're done.
I'll tell you what I constantly say, and I do really believe this. I think that MAGA members of Congress, MAGA voters, have all become addicted to their theater of the absurd.
Sure.
They've all just become addicted
100%.
to this theater of the absurdity. I'll go one step further. I said, this is not politics. This is chaos. That's what it is.
Yep.
When you try to introduce a bill that turns around to say that the former president is not an insurrectionist, that is not politics, my friend. That is chaos. And wanting to somehow put yourself on television, use it to fundraise, and to continue to create chaos and nothing more. Ever look back at your butt and think you deserve better? If not, well, you should. And this year, introduce yourself and your behind to the best with Tommy John's super soft underwear, loungewear, and pajamas. Tommy John's breathable, lightweight, and moisture-wicking fabrics are designed to make you feel that much more comfortable, so you could do everything better. Their tri-blend and modal fabrics stretch four times more than competing brands. And Tommy John moves 16 different ways to give you plenty of breathing room. Guys are nuts about Tommy John's comfort innovations, like a supportive hammock pouch and easy access horizontal quick draw fly. So it's no surprise Tommy John sold over, get a load of this, 20 million pairs of their lint-free, fuzz-free underwear, all featuring their famous no wedgie guarantee. With thousands of five-star reviews, Tommy John doesn't have customers, they have fanatics like me. So look, this New Year's, I made myself a resolution, and I call it my balls-to-the-wall commitment to comfort by cushioning my cojones. And I'll do it only in my Tommy John underwear. And here's why you should do it too. If you're tired of sweaty, chafing, wedgie-prone underwear, make the switch to Tommy John. Your family jewels and everything else will thank you. Wearing Tommy John makes you feel fresher, cooler, stylish, and more comfortable than other brands of underwear. So like me, if you do, you will become a fanatic of Tommy John too. Plus, your most valuable assets are always protected with Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear or its free guarantee. So go right now and shop Tommy John and get 20% off your first order right now at TommyJohn.com/Cohen. That's save 20% for a limited time at TommyJohn.com/Cohen. TommyJohn.com/Cohen. See site for details.
That is all they're after these days. They like to do these like show bills, these pretend bills, and they say, oh, well, this is, my very important piece of legislation, even though they know nothing can be done, even though they know it won't make a damn bit of difference. And they realize it, but they can't make themselves stop, in part because there's all these like fucked up incentives, right? Matt Gaetz knows he's not going to get this bill passed, but he does know he's going to be able to go out and send an email out to every one of his supporters saying, I have put a bill out to make Donald Trump innocent and free him. And they'll give him $100,000 from an email. And if somebody calls him out on it, he'll send out another email saying, they're trying to cancel me. So this perverted incentive structure on the Republican Party side, it's so fucked up and it's so bass-ackward now, but they cannot escape from it. They cannot get away from it. They don't have the ability to break the spell. I mean, Donald's going to have to like be dead in the ground for 5 years before these guys go, oh, well, I guess it's over. Okay. Whew.
Yeah, but that's them. And while I will acknowledge that there is a percentage of the Republican Party that are MAGA, all Republicans are not MAGA. All MAGAs,
for sure.
all MAGAs are Republicans, but not all Republicans are MAGA.
That's right.
That's right. In fact, if you look at New Hampshire, if you look at Iowa, you already are seeing that not all Republicans are MAGA. In fact, many of them are sick and tired of Captain Chaos and the bullshit of people like Matt Gaetz, of Elise Stefanik, of the Ted Cruzes. It's why there was no real turnout in either of those things. He won Iowa with 56,000 votes. If I was going to run here, which I'm contemplating but not getting the thumbs up from the wife to jump in it, I was going to run against Jerry Nadler for Congress. All right? I need about 160,000 votes to win. Donald Trump won Iowa with 56,000. This is my little district here in Manhattan versus the
Right.
entire state.
Yep.
And by the way,
Yep.
between Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, they took the other 50%. So half of the Republicans in Iowa don't want to be a part of this absurdity, of this chaos. And I think that that is going to play very well in the election. And with all of these bullshit polls that are out there, you know me, I don't buy any of them. And I'll tell
They're
you,
low quality.
very low quality.
Most of the polling is low quality garbage.
But here's the part also. To take a poll 10, 11 months out, as if that's going to be the snapshot in 11 months. Right now, Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, all the various super PACs have not released a single ad by Joe Biden talking about his accomplishments, talking about Donald Trump. You have some of the greatest ads, by the way, I've ever seen.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. And you know, I pushed that last one that you had out there. I mean, that was strong, and it's strong because it's true. But wait till all of the ads start coming out exposing Donald Trump. Wait till Donald Trump, who says that he wants to debate Joe Biden, actually gets on a debate stage and makes a complete asshole out of himself. Watch to see how numbers start to change very, very quickly.
Look, I think Trump is in the weakest position I've ever seen him in my observations of him by a long, long way. He is not a strong candidate. He is not in good shape, folks. He is not doing well. He is about this week to get a judgment out of the fraud case in New York that's going to, if not actually bankrupt him, then he practically bankrupt him. This thing is not going his way, folks. It is just not. It is not the world he thought it was going to be, and the reality check of all this shit with this guy that you see over and over again is there is a dollar figure with E. Jean Carroll that shut him up. There are dollar figures in the cost of these lawsuits that, he spent $50 million of donations on legal fees last year. This guy's is in a financial crunch, and the old bullshit he used to get away with, Michael, that you know very well, all of that is in the rearview mirror now. He's not capable of having that kind of I'll flim-flam this property value off that. That doesn't work anymore. That shit's over now, folks. He's in deep shit politically, financially, and legally. I mean,
let's not forget too, he just got a terrible ruling against him from the D.C. Appeals Court, the Circuit Court there. And now it appears that he has till Monday, 5 days, in order to file a writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court, assuming the Supreme Court will even hear this topic, because I just don't see it as
every lawyer I've talked to is every lawyer I've talked to who's read the ruling is no fucking way. They're not touching this.
Yeah, I agree with that, which means that the Jack Smith case before Judge Chutkin could potentially, I don't see it, but could potentially start on March 4th. That's a criminal. That's the criminal case, based out of D.C. If in fact that does not happen, it's more than probable it's not going to happen, because I'm sure Trump will try to figure out some additional delay tactic, or they'll just be additional delay, right? That doesn't stop the Manhattan District Attorney in their also criminal case against Trump. For the business records, hush money campaign finance violation, etc. That starts on March 25th. That case I'm supposed to be a key witness in, and I can tell you that they are intending, assuming Chutkin doesn't go forward, with starting on March 25th. That's a 4-week case at best, which means that you can have a jury's verdict before May 1st.
Yeah. And the irony of Trump right now is if you look at that date, you're looking at something that actually begins to politically hurt him right then, because he's going to try to appeal. There will be nothing but news about that case for a week, 10 days. That will drain him down a little bit more with the kind of voters who are already skeptical about Donald Trump. And I mean, look, I see a lot of very dark clouds on his horizon right now. And you know what? And he put every fucking one of them there himself.
He did.
Every bit of it.
He did. He'll want to blame everybody else for it. But truth be told, this is all his own doing.
If the guy could have just walked away, what do you think about this theory? Somebody asked me this the other day, and I've been pondering it ever since. And you're the first person I've talked to since I was asked this question. I didn't give the guy an answer. He goes, if Trump had just said, okay, fuck it, I lost, went back to Mar-a-Lago, played golf for 2 years, and then ran again, where would he be right now?
Much better
and
off.
I think that is the answer. I think he would be much better off. I think he might be in a really strong position, because people would have forgotten a lot of the bullshit, the chaos, the crazy shit. And they'd be saying like, okay, yeah, it wasn't that bad.
Well,
but now
if he would have done that
every fucking day.
Sure, but Rick, if he would have done that, there wouldn't have been January 6th insurrection. So you wouldn't have
of course.
that case,
yeah, right.
Right.
It's a counterfactual.
You also wouldn't have the case of the Georgia criminal case, with that phone call, that perfect phone call to Brad Raffensperger. Right. That wouldn't exist if he just acted normally. In fact, if I like so many people expected a very different, I don't know why I expected it. Many people did, but I, for one, expected that when he became president, that he would actually elevate to the office of the most powerful position on the planet, that he would elevate himself to honor the office of the presidency instead of denigrate it with his racist, sexist, misogynistic, xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic rants. That's what he did.
Yep.
Instead of, for a year and a half when we were talking about him running and we talked about what the first thing that he should do if he would become president, it was supposed to be an infrastructure bill.
Right.
Had he done that, he would have been unstoppable for the second term. Even with all the other bullshit, he would have been unstoppable. Instead, what was the first thing out of his Oval Office? What he called the immigration ban, which was not an immigration ban. It was a Muslim ban. Plain and simple.
Exactly. And look, there are a lot of ways you could go counterfactual and parse through woulda, coulda, shoulda on his entire term in office, but nothing now can be disguised. Today he could promise the first day I'm going to pass a bill that makes chocolate chip cookies the national cookie, and I'm going to pass the Puppies and Kittens Adoption Act. And right now everybody's going to go, the fuck you will. I know what you're going to do. You're going to be crazy again. You're going to be absolutely nuts one more time, and all of it is. All of it is going to be absolutely predictable if he becomes president again. All the bad things are absolutely 100% explicable and predictable from day one. There will be no better Trump. There will be no good Trump. There will be no iteration of Trump where he's like, hey, suddenly at the age of 80, I've discovered how to be a responsible human being.
Yeah. So, Rick, that actually brings me to ask you this. Because you said that the election cycle is going to be like nothing we've ever seen before. What sorts of things should we prepare for? And do you predict that there'll be violence?
Unfortunately, I think that he is actually predicting it, and therefore his audience is following that. When he says things like, my people love me so much, if I'm not given immunity, I don't know what will happen. Everybody who's opposed him in the legal space, is getting swatted, is getting attacked. All of this stuff has added up to this sort of, a very ugly atmosphere. And his people believe that unless he's reelected, it's the apocalypse. And so a lot of them feel they're justified in taking and taking violent action against not their political opponents or their rivals or their counterparts, but what they see as enemies.
It's a real problem.
And all of it, to my mind, I'm pretty fearful about how bad it's going to get.
Look, we saw just the other day, there was a shooting of a Palestinian guy at a pro-Palestinian protest by, and I don't know, bless you, I don't know whether or not the guy's MAGA or not. He certainly looks and he fits the part of MAGA, but he went and he stabbed this guy who was protesting, what's going on in the Middle East. And, look, regardless of whether you are pro-Palestinian or you're pro-Israel, which I don't understand why there's even this contrast right now. It's really pro-Israel, anti-Hamas. I don't know how many more times I can say it, that Hamas is not Palestine and Palestine is not Hamas. But they are, under the First Amendment, they are permitted to have a protest on behalf of their ideology. Sure. This fucking maniac decides to go out there. He doesn't like what they're saying. And he goes and he attacks the guy and stabs him. Him because he doesn't like what he's saying. That's certainly not a democratic principle. I guarantee you this guy is a MAGA. He looks MAGA. He acts the part of MAGA. He speaks MAGA. And his hatred, whether you agree with what this guy was protesting or not, he has the right within which to protest. He has the right within which to voice his own opinion. But you don't have to fear that if you're going out to do that some crazy bastard's going to go there and stab you.
Right. And look, the mainstreaming of violence is in a lot of ways now also equally on the heads of a lot of these MAGA Republicans who are calling like the January 6th terrorists hostages.
Mm-hmm.
And saying that they're political prisoners.
That's Donald Trump's doing.
And Elise Stefanik said that on TV. Why? Because she wants to be VP. These people know what they're doing. It is a really, I think, risky place to take America as we go forward to essentially say, violence is okay as long as it's against people who Donald Trump has designated our enemies.
Yeah. And you know what makes it even worse? While I was watching the father of this young man that got stabbed, he blamed Joe Biden. He blamed Joe Biden. And I was sitting there and I'm saying to myself, holy shit. My God, you could not be less informed to come in to make a statement like that on the news, that you blame Joe Biden because of what's going on right now between Israel and Gaza. Since when did Joe Biden become the prime minister of Israel? What are we supposed to do? Nuke Israel in order to stop the fighting with Gaza? With Hamas? With a bunch of terrorists that kidnapped and still hold hostages? The fuck is wrong with this guy? I couldn't believe it. Why don't you blame the guy who stabbed your son because you're Muslim? And by the way, father of this young man, and I feel terrible, that it happened, right? But why don't you turn around and say, MAGA Mike Johnson himself has said that if Donald Trump becomes president, they want to return America to a white Christian nation. First of all, we've never been a white Christian nation. So what happens to him? What happens to, it's either you convert or you have to leave the country.
It is.
It's like the Inquisition.
Well, look, I mean, the fantasy of absolute social power is something that the Republicans are deeply, deeply, deeply obsessed about. And this belief that they were somehow, that they've been somehow oppressed as white Christians in America, that there's some system that holds them down or keeps them down. It's just like you listen to it, you're like, what fucking planet are you people living on? Yeah. Wait, what? And the idea that any social construct that isn't theirs is an attack on them, it's crazy. And it is fundamentally un-American.
Yeah.
It is fundamentally a broken idea of what this country is and has been in every possible way.
Yeah. I want to switch gears for a quick second and ask you this, because
Sure.
I want to talk about Ronna Romney McDaniels. I mean, she's just been a fucking dumpster fire for the RNC. And I knew Ronna quite well. Never thought she was fantastic. She was able to raise money because, Trump was able to raise the money. It was an easy call. Right now, under her leadership, the party's financially ruined. And she herself has said that she's going to step down after South Carolina. What's your take on Ronna, and who do you think will replace her?
Well, look, they're going to put in some absolute loyalist who is going to make sure that the skim goes to the Trump family, the Trump crime family, without a doubt. That it will be somebody they can absolutely rely on, and God knows it. I don't think any serious person would take the job. I don't think any serious person would line up and say, wow, this seems like a fantastic idea for my career, my life, my sanity, and my security. There's no winning on that one.
I wouldn't be shocked if they make it Don Jr. or if they make it someone like Lara Trump.
I was just about to ask you. I know it sounds crazy, but why wouldn't it be Don Jr.?
Yeah, or Lara Trump, or somebody else. It won't be Eric, right?
No.
Ivanka wouldn't take it. Neither would Jared.
Poor Eric.
Right. But I could see them making Don Jr. And Lara Trump is like the second in charge, something like that, and then the two of them running around the country, negotiating with all of the big billionaires about
good luck with that, Don Jr.
Yeah. So let me then ask you this, jumping into like no labels. I mean, no labels is just looking more and more like an excuse to raise money and take pop shots at President Biden. They're not a third party.
That's what it is.
They're not a third party, or at least they aren't one that anyone really gives a shit about. So what are people like Andrew Yang and Dean Phillips really up to here?
Look, Yang and Phillips, I mean, those guys are just fucking jokers at this point. Dean Phillips was a humiliating example of watching dumb rich people burn their money to the ground. But I will say this with no labels. About a week ago, a little more than a week ago, they sent a letter to the Justice Department saying, oh, well, the Lincoln Project and Third Way and American Bridge and these other groups have criticized us. Therefore, you must investigate them and charge them with crimes against us. I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? You might want to refer back to the First Amendment's protections of freedom of speech and assembly, and the non-constitutional principle that still applies. Politics ain't beanbag. This is a group that thought they were going to have an easy skate. It is now funded by Republican billionaires, almost exclusively by Republican billionaires. All the staff is turned over, and they're mostly now people that used to work for Mitch McConnell, the NRCC, the RNC, the NRSC. It is meant to bleed Joe Biden down. And they keep saying shit like, Biden and Trump are just the same. They're just both the same. I'm like, again, in what fucking universe do you have that? Or do you not understand that there's a fundamental difference? And so, look, they're going to try to use lawfare against people that they don't like. They're going to try to raise all this money from Republican billionaires, and by the way, including Harlan Crow is one of their donors, who is the same guy who is Clarence Thomas's sugar daddy.
Yep.
So all of this Republican money is in there. And if anybody thinks all that Republican billionaire money from Dallas, Texas, and from Houston in particular is there to put a moderate centrist in the White House, well, I got some bad news. First off, it ain't. Second off, they're not on enough ballots to get to 270. All they can do is spoil the election. All they can do is divide off votes from Joe Biden. And the other thing
but before you jump into that, do you think that they're only going to siphon off votes from Joe Biden? Because I see more of it as siphoning votes away from Trump.
No, our model is that in the states they're on the ballot, they're going to put a moderate Republican or a moderate Democrat on the presidential ticket, and that'll draw away soft Democrats from Biden, and it won't draw that many soft Republicans. Now, the guy that's going to take votes from Trump is RFK Jr. because anti-vax, conspiracy theories, weird shit. That's where I think you're going to see a lot of votes leaving Trump world into RFK Jr.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this then, because Steve Bannon, and I have no great affection for Steve Bannon, but he predicted that eventually Nikki Haley and Trump will kiss and make up so that she could possibly be his running mate. This is Steve Bannon who predicted it. But didn't he just threaten her with investigation if she stays in the race? I want you to think about two things about that. One, the threat, which is what Donald is all about, right? We're going to threaten an investigation against you if you stay in the race, which is her fucking constitutional right to do so. She's of age. She's an American citizen. She has she's natural born. She has the right to run. Could you imagine that he's threatening her with an investigation on top of everything?
None of this is anything more than wish casting. Nikki may bend the knee eventually, but Trump absolutely does not forgive these days. He will punish her forever. She dared to defy him.
Yep.
And that defiance, he will never let that shit go. He will never let that shit go.
No. And it's why people like yourself and myself are more concerned about the outcome of this election than most people could even understand. Donald Trump's enemies list,
for sure,
which is as long as probably the Bible, right? I mean, they're going to have to write it on a scroll like the Torah, where it just keeps going and going and going, right? It is a long-ass list, but you know what? If he gets into power, every person on that list better fear for what's going to happen. And that includes Nikki Haley. By the way, it includes Supreme Court judges. It includes members of Congress. Because first and foremost, if he gets into power, there won't be a Congress. There won't be a Supreme Court. It'll be who he wants. And since they didn't protect him, especially the three that he appointed, who he thinks owe him, right? They're all going to go down with the rest of us.
It is a certitude that people who stand up to Trump, if he's president again, that the power of the state will be coming for all of us. The power of the government will be coming for all of us.
I've already been there.
For all his bullshit about... I was just going to say, for all his bullshit about this being in the future, you have lived through the power of the state being weaponized against you. And the idea that again, folks, the idea that anybody is going to say, oh no, don't worry about it. Donald Trump, he's going to be a normal president this time. Everybody's going to be normal this time. I mean, anyone who believes that, anyone who has a moment in their mind of fantasy that Donald Trump will be a quote unquote normal president, they need to really, really, really get a hard grip on reality. He's going to go after every one of his enemies, and he's going to use the government to do it.
Yeah, and that's going to be his government because everyone's going to have to sign a loyalty pledge. So if you acknowledge and recognize, and so many people, including members of Congress who have talked about it on the Hill, Jamie Raskin, Steve Cohen, Dan Goldman, Moskowitz, I mean, so many members of Congress have talked about it. They made me into the first political prisoner held by my own country because I refused to waive my First Amendment constitutional rights, remanded me back to prison, another 16 days of solitary confinement. How come there's no investigation into what happened? How come I can't get any traction at all in order to do something which is 100% completely antithetical to democracy? How come?
I think there's a degree to which Biden has overcorrected on the DOJ and overcompensated on not wanting to be seen as using the DOJ, etc. And that's why you can't get any clarity on that. I think that's what it is.
It doesn't make any sense. You have an opportunity.
I know.
You have the opportunity right in front of your face with what I guarantee you is clear. There's all these probably emails and letters and so on. It was all set up. What's Jeffrey Berman, the former head of the Southern District of New York, was contacted multiple times by Attorney General Bill Barr and told to change certain pleas to take Donald out and then just go after Cohen. This is all done under Donald Trump. This is the man who wants to return to the power of government, who wants to be the entire government. And the fact that there are people that are out there that want to support him, I don't get it. I don't understand why you want to throw democracy, the greatest experiment in the history of mankind, you want to throw it out for an autocracy. Makes no sense to me at all.
Right. It truly is. It truly is a risk that people, if we lose it, we lose it. If it goes, it goes. It doesn't come back. It doesn't. You don't just like flip a switch for democracy off and on. There are not a lot of democracies in this world that said, "Hey, let's jump into an authoritarian dictatorship or an authoritarian, statist environment," and are able to walk away from it without a major war.
Yeah,
and that's the last thing that anyone should want in this country, because it's like cats living in your house. Okay, cats depend on a system of external inputs to feed them, to clean the litter box, all those things. They don't know where those things come from or why they have them, but they like having them. We don't understand sometimes the gifts of democracy. It's like we ignore the beauty of the system that has been created with so much sacrifice over 240 years.
Yeah.
And people who are willing to put it at risk, whether it's to gain power again or because they just don't give a shit. I have very little patience with them.
And I have little respect for them. So look, Rick, the hour goes by quick here on Mea Culpa. I have one last question for you.
Okay.
What's going on there over at the Lincoln Project? I mean, what's the game plan for continuing to get under Trump's skin? And most importantly for my listeners, how can we support your amazing efforts? Because I think nobody does ads as hard-hitting and as important as Lincoln Project.
Well, Michael, thank you for asking that question, because I'm happy to talk about what we're planning to do this year. First off, folks, we always do what we call the audience of one. That audience of one strategy is what we are known for best. That is going straight at Trump himself, getting in his head, pissing him off, distracting him, not because it's fun to troll Trump. It is fun, make no mistake, but because that attack on Trump over and over again that we're so good at distracts him. It takes him off of his message. It gets his campaign staff spun up against the wall. It makes everything that we are able to do possible in terms of getting him off course. If he's attacking us or he's going crazy about something we said about him, he's not attacking Joe Biden that day. So that audience of one is always a big part of our strategy. The second thing we're going to do is the big national narrative ads. Like we just put out an ad while we were on the air about immigration, really laying out the stakes so Democrats can hear a message that works across the country about how to talk about immigration. It's simple. You say, Donald Trump is on the side of the coyotes, the smugglers, the child smugglers, the people bringing the terrorists and the illegals across the border. He's on the side bringing fentanyl over. So those narrative ads are another part of what we do. Then we're targeting 5 key swing states this year: Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and a bonus state to be named, which we're going to see where the 5th state comes in, where the polling sits a little more into the year. But in those states, we're going to go after our targeted voters, the Bannon line voters, soft Republicans, conservative independents, and we're going to make sure we pull them away from Trump and deliver them for Joe Biden. Not because they're liberals, but because they understand Trump is a danger to the future of the country. Folks, you can go to LincolnProject.us. You can follow our YouTube and Twitter pages. We're on all the social platforms at Lincoln Project or Project Lincoln. And you know, we're on our website. If you want to support the organization, you go to LincolnProject.us/donate. We are a fighting organization. We are here to bring the fight to Trump and MAGA, and we do it every day, and we're proud of what we do. And there's a reason why Donald Trump hates us more than anybody else. He's not out there obsessing about any other group except LP. And that's because we're the ones who hit him hardest, hit him most, and hit him deepest.
And you do it well. Rick, thank you, my brother.
My friend.
Great to see you.
Appreciate it.
Always.
Thank you, sir. We'll see you again soon.